lot of different allegiances that one can have in the Naruto universe. You can claim allegiance to a hidden village, the Anbu, the Root, the Shinobi Alliance, the Akatsuki, and so many other places. However, one of the most prominent places that one would assume your average ninja would be able to claim allegiance to is their clan. An allegiance that one would assume would come high above all other allegiances, as after all, the clan you come from is essentially your family. And yet, in the Naruto world, it seems as though clan allegiance barely exists. Whether this is because a lot of the characters that we know in Naruto are the singular members of their clans that we know, or because the idea of clan loyalty was purposely dissolved with the advent of hidden villages. Regardless of the reasoning, even though in Naruto there are over 50 clans, it feels as though in the grand spectrum of things that matter in Naruto, clans aren't really one of them. But that doesn't mean they're not important to us, the readers. See, because studying these clans on an individual basis is one of the most time-consuming yet fun things that I do in my deep dives of Naruto. And as somebody who has studied all 51 clans in the Naruto universe, games, novels, and manga included, I've decided it's time to make a video that I've been putting off for a while. See, because today I want to talk about those 50 plus clans, but more specifically, I want to talk about the strongest ninja to come from each of those 50 plus clans. Yes, that's right, ladies and gentlemen, today we are undertaking one of my most ambitious projects ever, because today we are talking the strongest ninja from each clan in Naruto. Before we get into that vicious undertaking, guys, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. So I know a couple of seconds ago I said we're going to be explaining the strongest ninja from every clan in Naruto. But that is 50 plus clans, a lot of which are completely irrelevant to the grand Naruto universe. About 10 of those clans have no known members, another 10 of those clans are only from the anime, and another 5 of those clans are only from the video games. And so in actuality, Naruto, when you only include the manga and the novels, only has about 26 canon clans. And so I'm sorry, I lied. We're only going to be talking about the strongest characters from all of the canon clans. And we're doing them alphabetically. So first up, we got the Aburame clan. Now, the Aburame clan is an incredibly well-known clan from Konoha. In fact, they're one of the 3 royal clans of Konoha. 3 clans that include the Hyuga, the Aburame, and the Uchiha. At birth, members of the Aburame clan are presented to a series of different insects, at which point their affinity for certain insects will be selected as a baby, at which point whatever insect that they do have an affinity with will crawl inside of their skin, living with the Aburame clansmen in a symbiotic relationship. Because of this, all Aburame clansmen are characterized through their use of these bugs as weapons. And while the Aburame clan is one of the bigger clans in Konoha, and therefore one of the more well-known clans in Naruto to us the reader, the answer for the strongest ever Aburame is not necessarily close, even though we know so many of them. See, because really when it comes down to it, the neck-and-neck race to be the strongest Aburame comes down to Shino or Tsurune Aburame. Tsurune Aburame being Danzo's right-hand man in the Root, and Shino being one of the members of the Konoha 12. And there is technically an argument to be made for either of these two being the strongest ever Aburame. The argument for Tsurune Aburame is the fact that Tsurune Aburame was able to use the Rinkaichu, a microscopic corrosive bug that spreads across the skin of the user. And anybody who the user touches, while their skin is purple from the spread of these microscopic bugs, will immediately get a flesh-eating disease that quickly eats away at their body. Now, it's specifically stated that very few people in the Aburame clan have affinity with this bug, and therefore Tsurune's ability to not only have an affinity for it, but also use it at a high level means he's one of the strongest Aburame ever. But Shino also has an affinity for the Rinkaichu, however he actively chooses not to use it, as he actively rallied against being recruited to the Root and also believed that the usage of the Rinkaichu was too brutal. However, this doesn't mean that Shino doesn't have a repertoire of absolutely brutal bugs in his arsenal. See, Shino, like the rest of the Aburame, can use the Kikaichu, which is just their standard beetle. But he also has access to terrifying bugs like the Kidaichu, which is a bug that he can fire into the skin of his opponents, and if his opponents don't feed that bug the right amount of chakra, the bug will continue to consume their chakra, growing in size until eventually it erupts out of them. And through the usage of these bugs that aren't the Rinkaichu, Shino was able to defeat a Edo Tensei version of Tsurune. And as Tsurune died in his prime, it's not like he was fighting against a non-prime Tsurune, but he was fighting against a version of Tsurune that had infinitely refilling chakra and a body that can't be destroyed. And yet Shino found a way to come out victorious, making Shino our strongest ever Aburame. Next up, we got the Akimichi clan. Now, the answer for the Akimichi clan is kind of difficult, because while I would love to sit here and say that Choji is the strongest ever member of the Akimichi clan, we don't necessarily have any feats that separate Choji from his father Choza. See, yes, obviously, we know more about Choji than we do Choza, but genuinely, all of the most impressive feats we ever see from Choji, we see in the 4th Great Shinobi World War, as after the conclusion of Naruto Shippuden, he kind of disappears from the story story entirely. And unfortunately, everything he did in the 4th grade Shinobi World War, his father kind of also did. Whether it was using full body expansion jutsu to become the size of a mountain at the speed of lightning, and yes, that is how fast they do it and how large they get according to the 4th data book. When it comes down to it, both Choji and Choza were able to do that when they were getting ready for their battle against the Geto statue. And while in this battle, Choji and Choza did not come out victorious, obviously, they were both able to hold their own against the Geto statue. Now, realistically, the only difference between the two of them in this battle is that in the beginning of the battle, Choji is using the butterfly wings on top of being his biggest. When Choza storms onto the battlefield to support Choji, he's not using the butterfly wings. However, the butterfly wing jutsu is something that's talked about in the Akimichi clan like every adult can do it. Because when Choji activates the butterfly jutsu for the first time that we ever see it in the Sasuke retrieval arc, he talks about how he's unable to pull it off because he's not an adult yet. And therefore, it's not crazy for us to assume that Choza, the head of the Akimichi clan at that time, would also probably be able to use the butterfly wing jutsu on top of being at his most massive. But simply based on the fact that we don't see that from Choza and that Choji is currently described as the most physically strong ninja in the entirety of Konoha, I'm gonna have to give it to Choji. But enough about those well-known established clans, because next up we got the Shinoiki clan, or the Shinoiki. I really don't know how to say it. Shinoiki was a clan that was active during the Warring States period, and its members possessed the dojutsu very similar to the Sharingan, a dojutsu by the name of the Ketsuryugan, a Kekkei Genkai that not only allowed them to cast genjutsus on those they made eye contact with, but also allowed them to control liquids with high amounts of iron in them, which is almost always just blood. Now, unfortunately, we don't know much about the Shinoiki clan because they were wiped out during the Warring States period by the Uchiha, and therefore by the time that we get to them in the Sasuke Shinden novel that later got adapted into the ending part of Naruto Shippuden, there are only 2 members of the Shinoiki clan left, and only one of them was a combatant, and her name was Chino, or Chino. I don't know how soft the C is. It's been a long time since I watched the end of Shippuden. Now, Chino was trained to be a Kunoichi from the time that she was young, and she became very powerful very quickly. Also, she could fight in the Colosseum that was run by the man who she didn't know was her father, En Oyashiro. Chino, outside of the usage of her Ketsuryugan, which allows her to use genjutsu on par with that of the Sharingan, and control liquids high in iron content, also was incredibly skilled in water release, being able to easily generate giant walls of water for defense or fire blobs of water at people for offense. And while Chino cut her teeth as a Kunoichi fighting against rather unskilled child fighters in this underground Colosseum, that doesn't mean that she wasn't incredibly powerful, as she was able to battle against an adult Sasuke with a 6-tome Rinnegan for a little while. And while the majority of their fight boiled down to the fact that Chino believed that she placed Sasuke under genjutsu, but in reality she was under genjutsu, the fact that Sasuke even felt as though he needed to place her under genjutsu to win the fight means that he took her pretty seriously. But enough about that clan whose name I may or may not be able to pronounce. Next up, we got the Fuma clan, one of the more mysterious clans in the entirety of Naruto. See, because here's the thing. The anime wants you to think that the Fuma clan is a well-known and established clan inside of Konoha. However, the manga has never hinted at that point whatsoever. See, because while in Boruto and certain sections of Naruto, it appears as though there's Fuma clan's members all over Konoha who have taken over the policing duties of the now dead Uchiha. But in actuality, in the manga, there's only one Fuma clan member, and that one Fuma clan member is the first animal path. And yet still, the Fuma clan is a famous clan in both the Hidden Rain and the Land of Fire, known for their distant relation to the Uchiha and their overall aggression. But more notably than anything, they're known for the giant Fuma shuriken they carry on their backs. However, even though distantly related to the Uchiha clan, the Fuma do not possess the Sharingan. They kind of got stiffed in that regard. All they got was the really big shuriken that never really seems to do all that much. And within the capacity of the manga, all we really know about the Fuma clan is that when Jiraiya was traveling in his earlier years, directly prior to the Second Great Shinobi World War, that is, the first animal path, on a tip that there was ninjas hiding in a peaceful village, destroyed the entire village looking for said ninja. Now, Jiraiya came out to that village after hearing that it was destroyed, and when he got there, he was attacked by the first animal path, whose name we do not know. However, over the course of their fight, Jiraiya managed to land a slash on the forehead of this Fuma clansman, and then eventually, after coming out victorious in this battle against this unknown Fuma clansman, his body was converted into the first animal path by Nagato. But if we're saying the fact that his body eventually became one of the animal paths, that would make him a very powerful contender in a clan that he doesn't necessarily need to be a very powerful contender in. As with the power of the animal path, he was able to summon some of the most terrifying and powerful summons we've ever seen in Naruto. Summons who once cut down could simply be replaced with a scarier and larger summon. But enough about that clan with only one member. Let's get to another clan with only one member, because next up we got the Hatake clan. And listen, I know what you're saying, Nick, at one point there was 2 members of the Hatake clan, and you're right, at one point there was. In fact, at one point there was almost 3 members of the Hatake clan, but Kakashi's mother died in childbirth. 2.5? Now, the Hatake clan is absolutely a clan where you need to be as powerful as possible to have any hope of being the strongest ever Hatake, as Sakamo Hatake was said to be stronger than the 3 legendary Sannin when they were in their late teens combined, meaning that Sakamo Hatake was on par with legends like Prime Granichio or Prime Hanzo. In fact, Sakamo Hatake was so incredibly powerful that he had run on-site orders from multiple different nations. So much so that when people saw Kakashi, who was very much and very obviously a child, running around with white hair and a chakra saber, people ran from him. And yet, even though Sakamo Hatake was one of the most legendary shinobi of all time, Kakashi's stronger. Ignoring the fact that for the majority of Kakashi's life, he had things like the Kamui, he copied over 1,000 jutsus. After losing his Kamui, he managed to recreate Madara's purple lightning and get even more powerful because his chakra reserves are no longer being sapped by a Sharingan he couldn't deactivate. Kakashi, at his absolute strongest, is obviously DMS Kakashi. And DMS Kakashi is often compared to Hagoromo boosted Naruto and Sasuke at the end of the 4th Great Shinobi World War. And for good reason, as DMS Kakashi was the only person outside of Naruto who was able to speed blitz Kaguya, and without his assistance and his perfect Susanoo, the battle against Kaguya may not have been won. So considering the fact that even for a little bit, Kakashi was able to summon a perfect Susanoo that was able to throw shuriken the size of school buses that if they hit you would immediately transport you into the Kamui dimension, meaning if you had no dimensional travel capabilities, if you managed to survive being hit by a shuriken that large, you were dead anyways. And yeah, I don't see Sakamo Hatake stacking up to that level of power. But hey, probably the second and or 3rd strongest father-son duo in the history of Naruto. My god, is that a video? I'm writing it down right now. That was fun how we're talking about that clan that everybody knows with characters that everybody loves, right? Yeah, no more of that. Next up, we got the Hoki clan. And to those of you wondering, Nick, who's the Hoki clan? Great question. They're literally only from Gaara's light novel. The Hoki clan are a well-known clan in the Hidden Sand, known for being medical ninjutsu users and information gatherers. They're introduced in Gaara Hiden because Gaara is supposed to marry one of the members of the Hoki clan, specifically the clan head of the Hoki clan. While she is a powerful medical ninjutsu user who uses wind release to spread the effectiveness of her medical ninjutsu, in actuality, the strongest member of the Hoki clan is her older sister turned bodyguard, Shijima Hoki. See, Shijima, as the bodyguard of the head of the clan, doesn't necessarily commit themselves to medical ninjutsu or information gathering, and is therefore the most offensively focused member of the Hoki clan. She fights with something known as Ho Shuriken, which is essentially just an iron rod, meaning it's more of a blunt force weapon than a shuriken, but because it's so heavy, it's stated that a direct hit with it is able to take down a horse. She also uses wind release in a very specific yet cool way. See, Shijima compresses wind release down inside of her weapon. Therefore, if her weapon is ever destroyed, her weapon explodes into a burst of shrapnel. On top of this, Shijima was experimented on when she was young by Orochimaru, and Orochimaru tried to give her a fake replication of the Sharingan. However, it was considered a failure, and therefore her eyes had to be sealed with a Fuinjutsu. However, she is able to unseal her eyes, and when she does unseal her eyes, making eye contact with her puts people in a paralyzed state like Genjutsu. And therefore, even though it's not a fully functioning Sharingan, it's still a pretty powerful asset to have. And for that reason, the strongest member of the Hogi clan is Shijima. Well, we ain't done with the H's by a long shot, because next up we got the Hoshigaki clan, which only has 2 members, and the stronger of those 2 members is obvious. It's Kisame. You could give Shizuma all 7 swords of the 7 swords of the mist, and Kisame nothing, and Kisame would still win. Kisame would be the strongest person from a clan in about 80% of the clans in Naruto history. He is undoubtedly the 4th strongest person from the Akatsuki, only weaker than people with dojutsus like Obito, Nagato, and Itachi. He was known as the Monster of the Hidden Mist, or the Tailless-Tailed Beast, one of the few people in existence who could wield Samehada, due to his absolutely ridiculous amount of chakra that earned him the moniker the Tailless-Tailed Beast. He has held allegiance to 2 of the strongest organizations in the entirety of Naruto, the 7 Swordsmen of the Mist and the Akatsuki. He is, if not the best water ninjutsu user of all time, the 2nd best. It took Maikai opening to the 6th gate to defeat a 30% Kisame, and to the 7th gate to defeat Kisame without Samehada. He was able to essentially defeat people like Killer Bee in combat, as it was later revealed that Killer Bee stealing Samehada was always in the cards for Kisame, something he was planning on so he would be able to spy on the hidden cloud. And while he, like every other member of the Akatsuki, eventually ended up in the ground, he was one of the very few who went out of his own accord. But enough about those weirdos with weird teeth from the Hidden Mist Village. Next up we have... Next up, we have the Hozuki clan, a clan that has a whole whopping 2 more members than the Hoshigaki clan, 3 members. And all 3 of the members are very, very powerful. See, because the 3 members that we have from the Hozuki clan are Gengetsu, Mangetsu, and Suigetsu. And all 3 of those people are Kage level threats. Now, conventional knowledge, which is we saw this character the most and therefore they must be the most powerful, would tell us that Suigetsu is the most powerful Hozuki. But I don't think that's the case. Really, I believe this is a 2-horse race between Gengetsu and Mangetsu Hozuki. And unfortunately, we don't know a huge amount about either of them. See, obviously, we know that Gengetsu Hozuki was the second Mizukage. A Mizukage so powerful that even when he was telling an entire platoon of people how to defeat him, they still struggled. Between his clan-specific hydrification technique that allowed him to make his body into water, meaning that he basically had a version of the Kamui that nullified all physical attacks, his mastery over water ninjutsu techniques that allowed him to do things like water bullet technique, and his giant genjutsu-inducing mist-creating clam summon, Gengetsu Hozuki was so powerful that he managed to kill Mu, the second Tsuchikage, in combat. And Mu is probably the most accomplished user of particle style we've ever seen. However, on the other hand, while we know next to nothing about Mangetsu Hozuki, outside of the fact that he was brought back during the 4th Great Shinobi World War like the rest of the 7 Swordsmen of the Mist's strongest generation, what we know about Mangetsu Hozuki as a legend massively dwarfs this information that we were given. See, because not only was Mangetsu Hozuki a member of the strongest ever generation of the 7 Swordsmen of the Mist, but Mangetsu accomplished the goal that Suigetsu wanted to accomplish his entire life before his death. And that was to not only become a member of the 7 Swordsmen of the Mist, but also to master all of the 7 swords, meaning that Mangetsu Hozuki could use all 7 swords, Samehada included. And because this Mangetsu Hozuki is considered to be one of the strongest shinobi ever created in the Hidden Mist. And while the circumstances of his death are unclear and he gets defeated by the 3rd Division in the 4th Great Shinobi World War, that's because he gets brought back without a weapon. All the other 7 Swordsmen of the Mist get their weapons, he gets nothing. Meaning when he's going on a massacre, killing members of the 3rd Division with his silent killing technique, he's just using his water ninjutsu. So what we see from him in terms of actual fighting shouldn't be considered his highest capabilities. But still, with all that in mind, the fact that Gengetsu Hozuki was able to kill Mu means to me that he's the strongest ever Hozuki. Though if there is an underrated clan in Naruto, it is the Hozuki clan. But enough about those underrated clans, let's get to those heavily overrated clans, because next up on our list, we got the Hyuga clan. And boy oh boy is this a contentious spot. Because here's the thing. There's really 2 answers, because the 3rd data book tells us that by the time that Shippuden comes around, Neji has surpassed every other Byakugan user in history, something that Hayashi, Hinata's father, believed that he'd be able to accomplish after seeing his raw talent, meaning that in Shippuden, Neji was the strongest ever Hyuga. However, Neji dies in Shippuden, and after Neji dies, Hinata continues to grow. Now, Neji being hailed as the strongest ever user of the Byakugan in the 3rd data book means that in the beginning of Shippuden, he was the strongest ever Hyuga. However, this isn't stated in the 4th data book, the final data book of Naruto, and that's probably because as Shippuden progresses, Hinata gets stronger, learning techniques that Neji never uses, like twin lion fists. On top of this, Hinata eventually receives a chakra boost from Hamura, the progenitor of the Hyuga clan. And she uses this chakra boost alongside with the aid of Naruto to destroy a Tenseigan. Tie this into the fact that Hinata at the peak of her power is able to see 20 kilometers away with her Byakugan, when Neji is only ever established to be able to see 800 meters away. And it seems as though that by the time that the last comes around, that Hinata is actually the strongest ever Hyuga member. However, that's not me saying that if Neji was given an equal amount of time that he couldn't have become stronger than she was. So when it comes down to it, I have to give it to Hinata, but only because she was given more time than Neji. But enough talking about the strongest clan in Konoha. Next up, let's talk about the real strongest clan in Konoha, the Inuzuka. Ironically, outside of the Hyuga, the Inuzuka might actually be the clan that we know the most people from. We know, including dogs, 15 members of the Inuzuka clan, and yet somehow none of them are relevant. And therefore, genuinely sitting down and telling you who the strongest out of all of the Inuzuka clan's members of all time is kind of difficult, because the only Inuzuka we ever see engaged in any actual combat is Kiba. And yet I still don't think Kiba is the strongest ever Inuzuka. I think out of all of the Inuzukas we've ever seen, in actuality, the strongest Inuzuka is Hana, his sister, because she's able to use Fang over Fang just like Kiba is. The most impressive thing she pulls off during the 4th Great Shinobi World War is battling against Ten Tails clones in White Zetsu just like Kiba Kiba. She's a Jonin, like Kiba. However, on top of all of this, she's also a medical ninjutsu user, as she was the person responsible for healing Kiba after his battle against Sakon and Ukon. So when you consider the fact that Hana and Kiba have the same offensive output, but Hana can heal people as well, I feel as though it's rather obvious that she's more powerful, or at least more useful. On top of this, in the Inuzuka clan, more dogs means more power, and Hana has always had 3 dogs, the 3 Haimaru brothers, while Kiba in Boruto only has 2, and one of them is the way too old Akamaru. But enough about clans that somehow manage to be irrelevant with 15 known characters. Let's talk about clans that manage to be incredibly relevant with just 1. Because up next, we got Jugo's clan, which is, just called Jugo's clan. But it's worse than that, because not only do we not know Jugo's clan's name, but we also don't know where they're from. But we do know that Jugo's clan has an innate ability to absorb nature energy from the surroundings around them. However, because they're constantly pulling in nature energy, they go through fits of uncontrollable madness. But when they're not going through fits of madness, their body secretes a fluid that allows them to drastically change their anatomy, turning their hands into blades or their legs into rockets. And yes, Jugo, as the only member of this clan, is the strongest member of this clan. His rocket-powered punches and nature energy fueled rages allow for him to battle against people like Killer Bee. And by the time the Boruto comes around, whenever he loses control of his body, people like an adult Konohamaru stood really no chance against him. Enough about those clans with ambiguous and powerful Kekkei that only have 1 surviving member, because next up, we got the Kaguya clan. See, the Kaguya clan are descendants of Kaguya Otsutsuki, and like specifically Kaguya Otsutsuki, not Hagoromo or Hamura, which I've always found incredibly odd. How are they descendants of Kaguya and not her 2 sons? Did Kaguya have another child that was just less problematic for her? Now, the Kaguya clan lived in the land of water. They were a brutal, barbaric clan that hinged its entire identity on combat, and therefore the Warring States period were a great time for them. However, after the foundation of Konoha caused a domino effect for other areas to found their own ninja villages, which eventually led to the foundation of the Hidden Mist, the Kaguya clan realized that if they wanted to continue living the way that they've always lived, that they would have to destroy the Hidden Mist. And therefore, one night, with only simple weapons equipped, as the majority of them weren't able to use jutsu, they decided to rush the Hidden Mist village in a last-ditch attempt to destroy it. And while the surprise of the attack caught the Hidden Mist off guard, and therefore the Kaguya clan's invasion looked promising in the beginning, the collective effort of the multiple clans that lived in the Hidden Mist village and their general shinobi planning ability allowed for them to launch a counterattack against the Kaguya clan that eventually wiped them out. Well, wiped almost all of them out. See, because every couple of generations, a member of the Kaguya clan would inherit a derivative of one of Kaguya's most well-known jutsus, her ash all-killing bone. However, instead of firing bones that would turn whoever they hit into ash, members of the Kaguya clan inherited the Shikatsu Miyaku, a technique that allowed for them to control their own bones. And while this ability did still allow for the firing of bones, these bones didn't turn you into ash if they hit you. They would just punch through your body. However, the Kaguya clan wasn't stoked about those who inherited the Shikatsu Miyaku, and therefore Kimimaro was cast out of his clan early into his life, as everybody else in his clan was terrified of him. And because he was cast out of his clan, Kimimaro was not one of the people to rush the Hidden Mist on that fateful night. But because of this, Kimimaro got to live long enough to eventually be found by Orochimaru, at which point Orochimaru identified Kimimaro as a perfect vessel, giving him a curse mark that Kimimaro was able to awaken up to a version 2. And with this version 2 curse mark, even though Kimimaro had an incredibly sickly and weak body, Kimimaro was able to not only battle against a drunken Rock Lee, but also the child prodigy that was Gaara. And if his sickness hadn't taken him out after the awakening of the version 2 version of his curse mark in his battle against Gaara, well then, Kankuro or Tamari would have been our next Kazekage, as Kimimaro died right before delivering a final blow to Gaara's head. Ooh, I'm just realizing I accidentally skipped a clan, and it's a really important one, because the clan I accidentally skipped was the Izuno clan. You know the Izuno clan, right? The Chakra Furries? The Izuno clan were a clan introduced in Boruto. And while there's multiple Izuno clan's members in the Boruto anime, there's only one Izumo clan member in the Boruto manga, and that's Wasabi, who's essentially just an Inuzuka in all the ways that matter. Wasabi uses a technique that seems slightly derivative of the Inuzuka's four legs technique, with her clan's cat covering technique, a technique that sees her getting on all four legs, growing claws, ears, and a tail. Now, cat covering makes Wasabi apparently the second fastest person in the entirety of her shinobi class. A shinobi class that, mind you, includes Sarutobi, Mitsuki, and Boruto. She uses the speed and augmented power of cat covering to increase her taijutsu prowess. And technically, if you want to listen to the anime, she's kind of got a cat Susanoo, because she was the first member of the Inuzuka clan in generations to complete, and I'm gonna have to read this from my notes, the cat god possession monster cat beckoning technique, which surrounds you in what can only essentially be described as a giant cat Susanoo. Aren't you so happy we went back for that clan? Moving on. Next up, we got the Karatachi clan, which only has two known members, Yagura and Kagura. Yagura being Kagura's grandfather. While both members of the Karatachi clan that we know of became incredibly strong shinobi, as Kagura was talked about as being one of the most accomplished ninjas in the Hidden Mist in generations, unfortunately no amount of sword mastery is going to put you on par with Yagura. See, because Yagura, outside of being the fourth Mizukage, was also a perfect Jinchuriki to Isobu, the Three Tails, an ability that he used to battle against Juzo and Itachi, simultaneously killing the former and seriously injuring the latter. Now, Yagura lived an incredibly complicated life because he was under the power of Obito's genjutsu for the majority of it, which trumped up his violence, and eventually, after he was broken out of said genjutsu, led to his death. However, Yagura was one of the youngest ever Mizukages, and after becoming one of the youngest ever Mizukages, he not only unified all of the islands of the Land of Water, but also made the Land of Water into the bloody mist that it would be known for decades. But what made Yagura so powerful wasn't just his perfect Jinchuriki transformation. Well, that is what he's shown using in the battle against Juzo and Itachi. He's also shown using high-level wind release and water release, as he's able to create water mirrors that can fully reflect all ninjutsu, kind of like the Yata mirror that's attached to Itachi's Susanoo. But if high-level elemental ninjutsu release isn't enough, well, yes, he's a perfect Jinchuriki. Though that didn't stop him from being manipulated by genjutsu his entire life. So how perfect of a Jinchuriki was he? We can't necessarily say. But since we're talking about clans that produce leaders, next up on our list we got the Kazekage clan. Now this clan that Rasa, Gaara, Temari, and Kankuro belong to is called the Kazekage clan, but that's not their actual last name. In fact, the only member of the Kazekage clan who has a last name is Shikadai, because his last name is Nara. Now it's revealed to us in Gaara Hiden that the Kazekage clan holds a high level of influential authority inside of the Hidden Sand. That is to say that the Kazekage lineage appears in the Hidden Sand village to be more hereditary than in other villages. The Kazekage clan itself is pretty large, with 7 known members, those being Gaara, Kankuro, Temari, Karura, Rasa, Shikadai, and Shinki. And thus out of all of these 7 pretty powerful members, who's the strongest? And that question is actually kind of difficult. See, because while we can all acknowledge the fact that it's not Kankuro, it's not Rasa, it's not Temari, it's not Karura, it is a toss-up between Gaara and Shinki. And now I know there's a lot of you out there saying there's no way that Shinki's already more powerful than Gaara, and you might be right. I mean, Gaara's feats as a Boruto are actually kind of insane. Gaara's boxed with Momoshiki, non-fused, Kinshiki, and even been able to block attacks from fused Momoshiki. He went toe-to-toe with the likes of Oroshiki, was able to seal him in a Grand Sand Mausoleum for hours, and while he appeared to be fatally injured by Moegi Shinju, he believed he'd be able to hold her off long enough that Shinki and the rest of the New Age Sand siblings would be able to escape. And when you tie all of this into Gaara's feats during the Fourth Great Shinobi World War, yeah, it seems hard to believe that Shinki is anywhere near as powerful as his father. However, Shinki on a jutsu basis should be stronger than Gaara. Controlling iron sand with magnet release is stronger than controlling sand. In fact, Gaara doesn't even control sand with magnet release. It's only because of his relationship with Shukaku that he's able to control sand in the first place. And this is why the third Kazekage is talked about as the strongest Kazekage ever, because he controlled iron sand. And so that should be Shinki's ceiling. However, unfortunately, the most impressive thing that we've seen from Shinki in the manga is 1, being able to overcome Mitsuki in battle, and 2, create a seal so powerful around Gaara's injured body that even the Shinju can't break into it. So even though I do believe at one point Shinki is going to become more powerful than Gaara, I don't think we're at that one point yet. And so, for the moment, Gaara is still the most powerful member of the Kazekage clan ever. And yes, he's stronger than his dad by a landslide. Yes, because gold is heavier than sand, Rasa was able to defeat Shukaku multiple times. But gold dust has multiple times been stated to be the weakest thing you can control with magnet release. Let's move on to a clan undoubtedly more relevant than the Kazekage clan, because up next we have the Kodon clan. You know, from Naruto Jin Raiden, The Day the Wolf Howled, the light novel about Sasuke trying to find a new personality after killing Itachi. It brought him to the Howling Wolf Village, the place where Itachi got his medicinal eye drops to keep himself alive long enough to be killed by Sasuke. Within the Howling Wolf Village exists a clan by the name of the Kodon clan, and we know of 3 members from it: Kina, Reishi, and Tenma. Now, Tenma is most likely the strongest ever Kodon clansman, as when the Howling Wolf Village decided, much like the Land of Hot Water, that they no longer wanted to sell shinobi services, Tenma disagreed with that. And so he went to the shrine in the middle of the Howling Wolf Village that had a giant primordial wolf-like beast by the name of Rowan sealed inside of it. And therefore Tenma decided that he was going to unseal that wolf. Now, he did this because he believed he'd be able to control Rowan with a technique that all Kodon have, a medicinal technique known as Kotaro. However, because the village begins to fight back against Rowan, he loses control of the giant wolf, which inevitably leads to the wolf wiping out the majority of the Howling Wolf Village, including Tenma's wife, who he needed the help of to seal Rowan back into the shrine. And so Tenma, who no longer had anybody strong enough to help him seal Rowan back into the shrine, instead had to rather seal Rowan inside of his youngest son, Kina, though this cost him his life. And therefore, simply because Tenma at one point was strong enough to control Rowan and was strong enough to seal Rowan inside of his son, that to me makes him the strongest Kodon member. Not that you care. But next up, we got a way more contentious entry than the Kodon clan, because next up, we got the Lee clan, with its whole 2 members, those being Rock Lee and Metal Lee. And considering the fact that Metal Lee was introduced just to be immediately dropped from Boruto as a whole, I'm gonna have to go with Rock Lee being the strongest member of the Lee clan. See, because while it's not entirely clear as to whether or not Rock Lee was ever able to achieve the level of power that Might Guy achieved in the 4th Great Shinobi World War, we do know that Rock Lee can open up to the 7th gate, and that he's so well versed in the 8 gates that he was able to train an entire group of people in the Suicide Corps that are all 8 gates users inside of Konoha. And now we're not entirely sure as to whether or not Rock Lee can use the 8th gate, and we'll probably never see if he does, as he is almost as irrelevant as Metal Lee and Boruto. To say that he's stronger than his son, who we've never seen open any of the gates, isn't that difficult of a conclusion to come to, even though Metal Lee does have a natural drunken fist that's induced by his anxiety. But enough about that clan filled with people with stupid haircuts, because next up on our list we got, well, a clan filled with people with stupid haircuts, because next up on our list, we got the Nara clan. Now, the Nara clan has an absolutely massive roster of characters that we know. And while the majority of the Naras that we're ever introduced to are side characters at best, we still know, by my count, 13 Naras. They are, and I'm gonna have to read this from my notes here, Hakuto Daien, Enshu, Ensui, Kasuga, Mayan, Shikadai, Shikaku, Shikamaru, Suzuku, Yoshina, Shigazane, and Tamari. So from that list, who is the most powerful person? Well, to some of you, the answer may seem fairly obvious, right? I mean, obviously, it's the 8th Hokage himself, Shikamaru, right? Well, maybe. Here's the issue with the Nara. All of them become politicians at some point or another. Shikaku Nara, Shikamaru's father, was more of a strategist than a warrior. Obviously, he had the shadow manipulation ability of the Nara clan that he used to kill multiple enemy ninja. Really, when it comes down to it, the strength of the Nara is in their ability to plan. And this is why the Nara clan is mostly known for being a line of politicians and doctors. Their intelligence is what made them so incredibly crucial in the founding of Konoha, as they are one of the oldest clans within the confines of Konoha. And unfortunately for Shikamaru, the supposed strongest ever Nara, he falls into the exact same trappings as all the other Naras. See, because what is peak strength for Shikamaru? If I had to give you an answer, I would say it's the 4th Great Shinobi World War. Shikamaru was doing things like using Choji as a giant human yo-yo to battle against Asuma. And the reason that I say that Shikamaru was at his strongest in the 4th Great Shinobi World War is because immediately after the 4th Great Shinobi World War, he becomes a politician. After the conclusion of the 4th Great Shinobi World War, Shikamaru becomes the head of the Shinobi Alliance. And then 2 years after the conclusion of the 4th Great Shinobi World War, when Kakashi finally takes the mantle as the 6th Hokage, Shikamaru becomes Kakashi's right-hand man. And then he stays in that role all the way through Kakashi's Hokage-ship into Naruto's Hokage-ship, until eventually, after Naruto's disappearance, he becomes Hokage himself. But you ask me, Nick, during this timeline, haven't we seen Shikamaru do things like use shadow binding on all 4 of the Kage simultaneously and hold them while threatening to kill them? Well, yeah, except for the fact that Naruto and Gaara broke out of it and the other Kages were just being polite. Because when Shikamaru walks home after that conversation, he tries to use shadow binding on a tree and can barely break the bark. And so Hokage Shikamaru is probably not even as strong as he was as a Chunin. So the question that we have to ask ourselves is Shikamaru in the 4th Great Shinobi World War the strongest the Nara clan has ever been? And the answer to that, at least for me, is no, because Shikamaru married Tamari. Yeah, might be a little bit of a dirty trick here to say somebody who married in is the strongest ever Nara, but mind you, Tamari in the 4th Great Shinobi World War went toe-to-toe with Madara, and hit Madara with wind release so powerful that for the first time in the 4th Great Shinobi World War, he decided, maybe I need my Susanoo. Now, mind you, Tamari didn't become a politician directly after the 4th Great Shinobi World War. She kept being a shinobi, and therefore I would reckon with the training that she probably did during the blank period, she got much stronger than Shikamaru. And so for me, the strongest ever Nara is Tamari. But if you only want to use people who were born into the Nara clan, then yeah, it's probably Shikamaru, if not Shikaku. But enough about that incredibly important clan. Let's talk about another incredibly important clan, because next up we have the Otsutsuki clan. Listen, this is a tough answer, no matter how you slice it. Some people believe that Kaguya is the strongest ever Otsutsuki we saw because Kaguya wasn't killed by Naruto and Sasuke, and rather just sealed, an advantage they didn't have access to in the battles against Momoshiki and Kinshiki. And when you consider the fact that Kaguya may have eaten the only ever chakra fruit made with Shibai's DNA and chakra, and she was the only ever Otsutsuki we've ever seen awaken a Rinne Sharingan, then the argument to be made for Kaguya being the strongest ever Otsutsuki isn't that weak. But at the same time, Toneri's the only Otsutsuki who's ever shown a planet-busting ability, with his laser attack that was launched at Naruto that sliced the moon in half. But then again, Momoshiki fused with Kinshiki and talked down on Kaguya like he was stronger than her. Tie that into the fact that he's consumed at least a dozen chakra fruits and he should be stronger than Kaguya, right? But then there's Ishiki, who was the higher ranked Otsutsuki to Kaguya, but that was only prior to her eating the chakra fruit. Naruto and Sasuke could beat Momoshiki even in his fused form, but stood no chance against Ishiki. So the strongest ever Otsutsuki is Ishiki, right? Well, no, probably not. The strongest ever Otsutsuki is probably Shibai. And Otsutsuki's so incredibly powerful that he was able to harvest so many planets of chakra fruits that he could abandon his physical body and go exist in a dimension by himself. And Otsutsuki, who wielded the reflectability of Daemon, the omnipotence ability of Ada, the 10 paths ability of Kashin Koji, and presumably way more Shinjutsu, like the Senrigan of Ada. On top of this, he's now a wielder of thousands of Jogan, the Pure Eyes, whose abilities we're not even entirely sure of yet. So yeah, even though we've never seen him and technically his body is dead based off all the abilities that he was able to give to the members of Kara, I'm gonna have to go with Shibai. After the Otsutsuki clan, we got another one of the oldest Konoha clans in existence, the Sarutobi clan, who actually do have a lot of members, which makes sense when you consider the fact that they were the first clan to move into Konoha after it being founded. And this is illustrated multiple times in the Fourth Great Shinobi World War, like when after the Ten Tails is dropped into a pit of cement that the entirety of the Sarutobi clan uses their fire release together to harden that cement. But the most notable out of all the Sarutobi are Asuma, Hiruzen, Konohamaru, Mirai, Sasuke Sarutobi, and Kurenai. And that's actually a pretty loaded roster of characters. Mirai is a high-level Chunin on her way to being a Jonin. In fact, amongst the Chunin in Konoha in the new era, she's basically the most impressive there is. She's mastered Wind, Fire, Lightning, and Yin release, and was shown to be incredibly competent in battle during the Steam Ninja Scrolls. Sasuke Sarutobi is a ninja of such legend that Sasuke, who's not even from the Sarutobi clan, was named after him. Kurenai is one of the greatest Genjutsu users of all time in Konoha. Asuma was one of the 12 pillars, meaning at one point he was one of the 12 strongest fighters in the entirety of the Land of Fire. So strong that he was elected specifically to defend the daimyo. Konohamaru was the right-hand man of the Hokage and a high-level Jonin. Well, I don't know. High level maybe in Naruto, but not so high level in Boruto. Really, when it comes down to it, if you want to talk about the strongest ever Sarutobi, you gotta go with the Professor Hiruzen Sarutobi. Hiruzen was the first ever person in Naruto to be referred to as the god of shinobi, but he was later known as the Professor. He was the longest ever reigning Hokage, reigning all the way from the end of the First Great Shinobi World War to after the Third. And the reason he was known as the Professor is because he had mastered every single jutsu of the leaf. And in his late 60s, as a man who hadn't seen a battlefield in a decade, Hiruzen managed to go toe-to-toe with one of the legendary Sannin in Orochimaru, who resurrected not only Hashirama, but also Tobirama to battle against Hiruzen. And yet Hiruzen, trapped on a roof by himself, managed to clutch up the 1v3, severing the use of Orochimaru's arms and sealing them away in a Shinigami, ensuring that Orochimaru wouldn't be nearly as powerful until he was able to cut open the Shinigami's belly in Shippuden, and securing the safety of Konoha for years to come. He was single-handedly on the night of Naruto's birth able to push Kurama out of the village with his extendable pole, and he had a contract with the strongest summoning in all of Naruto, Monkey King Enma. Hiruzen is not only one of the strongest Sarutobi ever, but simply one of the strongest ninja ever. And that's a trend that we're going to be following here with our next couple of clans. Because next up after the Sarutobi, we have a clan as old as the Sarutobi who spawned Hiruzen's bestest friend in the whole wide world, Danzo Shimura with the Shimura clan. Now Danzo is the only member of the Shimura clan that we know, but we do know that the Shimura clan was one of the first clans to ally themselves with Konoha after the foundation of Konoha. Therefore, yeah, Danzo's the strongest member of the clan that he's the only member of. Not a hard choice. But even if Danzo wasn't the only member of his clan, he'd still probably be the strongest member, as Danzo at his peak power, which was ironically in his late 60s, was powerful enough to push a freshly MS'd Sasuke to his limits. See, Danzo answered the question that really nobody outside of Orochimaru was asking, which was, can I steal power from everybody else? And the answer was yes, as Danzo not only stole Shin Uchiha's arm that allowed for any and all foreign materials to be grafted onto it with no issues, but also stole about 17 Sharingan from the dead bodies of Uchiha clansmen after the night of the Uchiha massacre, that he used to span Izanagi over and over and over again until eventually he got close enough to Sasuke, well, to die. But that's not all Danzo injected into his body, as he also injected Hashirama's cell into his body, which gave him a massive overflowing amount of chakra that would allow for him to use Izanagi 17 times. Tie that into the fact that he is one of the more powerful summons that we've ever seen in the anime. Baku, a giant tapir-like creature that could suck in basically anything it wanted to, destroying it immediately, and couple that with the fact that Danzo knows every single one of the 7 elemental nature releases, yin and yang included, and yeah, he's a formidable foe who probably would have killed Sasuke if Obito hadn't stepped in to save him. But since we're talking about Sasuke, let's talk about Sasuke, because the next clan we got up on our list is the Uchiha, which has by far and away the most known characters out of any clan in the Naruto universe. You want me to read them all to you? Too bad, I'm doing it anyways. The known members of the Uchiha clan include Sakura, Baru, Fugaku, Hazuki, Hikaku, Hikari, Inabi, Itachi, Izumi, Izuna, Kagami, Kagen, Madara, Mikoto, Naka, Naori, Obito's grandfather, whose name we don't know, Rai, Sarada, Sasuke, Setsuna, Taiko, Taijima, Tekka, Taiyaki, Uruchi, Yukamu, and Yashiro. You would assume with the clan that's been so notably eradicated, there'd be less people we know. But Nick, out of all of these people, who's the strongest? The answer is incredibly obvious. It's Sasuke. Literally an argument for any other Uchiha being the strongest Uchiha of all time is disingenuous. Sasuke is the only Uchiha who ever fought against an Otsutsuki. Both him and Naruto are piecing up a 1 Rinnegan Madara, and we're probably going to proceed to piece up a 3 Rinnegan Madara until he got his back blown out. He then went on with his perfect EMS Susanoo to battle against Kaguya, who he was 50% of the reason was sealed in the first place. He then, during the blank period, got so strong that he himself identified that he'd be able to 1v1 a Kaguya level threat at his current power level. He then proved that by battling against Kinshiki and Momoshiki simultaneously, and only left when he realized that it was inconvenient that he fight this battle alone. He then, in base form, ran the ones with Momoshiki both fused and unfused, and without some meddling from the scientist whose name I've purposely forgot, he would have been once again 50% responsible for the death of a fused Momoshiki. He then managed to land a blow on Jigen, the only blow that's ever landed on Jigen by either Naruto or Sasuke, before getting pieced up by both Jigen and Ishiki. He is by far and away the strongest Uchiha. No, it's not full potential Itachi. No, it's not 3 Rinnegan Madara. It's Sasuke. And yes, I get it, Sarada has the potential to surpass him, but boy oh boy has it not happened yet. Speaking about people who have the potential to bypass their fathers, the next clan we got up is the Uzumaki clan. And my answer here is not gonna please a lot of you, because the strongest ever Uzumaki, it's Boruto. And it's not necessarily close.
Oh, Nick, what do you mean Boruto hasn't surpassed Naruto yet?
Yeah, yeah, he has. Listen, when it comes down to it, the most impressive feat that Naruto has is Baryon mode. When Naruto collided his chakra with Kurama's for a nuclear fusion reaction that made a new form of energy. And within the capacity of that minute or so, Naruto was able to piece up Ishiki, slowly shaving away at his life force until eventually he only had a couple of minutes left to live. Now that's really cool. However, that means that Naruto, in his ultimate, albeit limited form, was as strong, if not stronger, than Ishiki. Now, Ishiki is stronger than Jigen. By how much, we don't know. But the idea that Ishiki is stronger than Jigen is obvious. And the reason I'm talking about this is because it was established that when Code got his limiters off, that he would be a legitimate threat to Jigen. And since Code has already gotten his limiters off and his brakes beaten off by Boruto, that would mean that Boruto is stronger than Jigen. By how much, we don't know. But Boruto is leagues stronger than Limitless Code. As one could imagine that Ishiki would be leagues stronger than Jigen, and therefore to assume that Boruto, post-time skip, is somewhere in the region of Ishiki's strength is not crazy. Now I know what you're saying, but Nick, Baryon mode Naruto was stronger than Ishiki, and you're right. But this is not the end of Boruto's strength. He's still not using his karma marking, mind you, or his Jogan. This is base form Boruto on the level of Ishiki, and we know from chapter 1 or episode 1 of Boruto that at some point or another he starts using both the Jogan and the karma marking. So Boruto is going to get stronger by a lot. Now, will Naruto get stronger? Maybe. There is a Ten Tails walking around right now in the form of Juro, and it's not like Boruto's going to become the Jinchuriki of it, so there is always the possibility that Naruto will become stronger, that he'll return to the story like Gojo. But for the moment, he's floating in the Daikokuten, so who's to say? But enough about those irrelevant clans. Let's get to a clan that actually matters. The Yamanaka. I don't know, man. It's probably Ino. She's like maintaining the Konoha barrier team right now. She's head of interrogation. She showed that thing in the 4th grade Shinobi World War where she can split her soul in 2 different directions to use mind transfer jutsu on 2 people at once, even though her father Inoichi just used mind disturbance jutsu on like an entire group of people in like episode 30 of Naruto. But yeah, no, she's probably the strongest ever censor from the Yamanaka clan. I mean, like, Fu would be a good answer, right? He was Danzo's left hand man, but he just gets dunked on by Obito. But Danzo did say that Fu and Tarune were the 2 most skilled ninja in the route, and that's a pretty ringing endorsement. On top of that, he was such an accomplished sensor that he was able to sense Obito and immediately react to him and try to attack him, but unfortunately he couldn't detect the Kamui. On top of that, he probably had the most ever impressive application of mind transfer jutsu, where he would transfer his mind into a puppet that had swords for arms, and if his opponent ever attacked the puppet and did damage to it, he would immediately be transferred into the person who damaged the puppet, and their consciousness would be switched into the now immobile puppet. So yeah, no, it's It's actually probably Fu, unless you consider Sai. I mean, Sai is an adult and he's the head of the Anbu now. I'm going with Fu. It's Fu. You don't care. It's the Yamanaka. And that leaves only one clan left. The biggest, most important, most talked about, widely disseminated clan in all of Naruto, the Yuki clan, whose only surviving member is Haku. So it's Haku. Known for their ice release and being killed by their neighbors for having ice release, Haku was able to escape from the perilous fate of being murdered for having a jutsu by suppressing the fact that he had ice release. And because of this, he became the most recent child to die at the hands of Kakashi. Haku had an ability to generate ice mirrors that he could jump between instantaneously, much akin to flying Raijin, while also having the ability to generate thousands of ice needles that could stab Sasuke in the carotid and for some reason not have him die. But don't worry, Sasuke is now the only living user of ice release on Earth, so I guess he carried on the legacy. And with that, that is the strongest members of every canon clan in Naruto. My God, is Cody gonna be pissed about this. But if you guys like this content and want more NC Hammer 23 content, go ahead and join the fourth wall in my description below, where you'll get access to the raw, uncut reactions of me watching the entirety of Naruto. But before you do that, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. I'm gonna go abstain from saying the word clan for a month.